So, have you ever stopped to wonder what actually happens when a totally new generation is suddenly faced with massive, life-altering challenges? Especially when they don't have the guidance of those legendary leaders who came before them. Well, Chapter 3 is really where the actual action of this era begins to unfold. We're going to take a very deliberate, focused look straight at the ancient Hebrew text.
Welcome to the Pardes channel. Today we explain Prophets Judges chapter 3 in a clear and simple way, step by step. Okay, here is our roadmap for today's explainer. First, we'll look at the context of the remaining nations. Next, we dive into Othniel, the very first judge. Then we hit the wild story of Ehud and Eglon, followed by Ehud's incredible escape and victory. After that, we'll look at Shamgar, and finally, we will wrap the whole thing up with some practical lessons.
All right, let's jump right in with part 1, Context, the remaining nations.
So, right at the start of the chapter, the text explicitly lays out the geopolitical situation. God intentionally left some specific nations in the land. We're talking about the 5 Philistine rulers, the Canaanites, the Sidonians, and the Hivites. And they were left there for 2 very specific reasons. First, they were basically a test to see if the Israelites would actually obey God's commandments. And second, they were there to teach the harsh reality of warfare to a brand new generation. A generation that had literally never experienced those earlier battles. But, well, the Israelites unfortunately fail this test right out of the gate. They settle right in among these nations, they intermarry, and they actually begin serving foreign gods, specifically the Baals and the Asherahs, which were the local Canaanite idols. And this disobedience triggers a very strict 4-part historical cycle. Step 1 is, of course, the disobedience itself. Step 2, God's anger burns, and that leads directly to harsh oppression by their enemies. Then we hit step 3, where the people just suffer immensely until they finally break down and cry out to God for help. And then, step 4, God answers by raising up a deliverer, a judge, to save them. So let's see exactly how this plays out. Moving on to part 2, Othniel, the first judge.
Because of all that severe idolatry we just talked about, the anger of the Lord burned against Israel, and he essentially sold them over to Cushan-Rishathaim. Now, he was the immensely powerful king of the region of Aram-Naharaim. The Israelites were utterly subjected to this guy. I mean, think about it. For 8 long years, they lived under his harsh, oppressive rule. That is 8 whole years of losing their autonomy, giving up their resources, and having absolutely zero peace.
But finally, after those 8 brutal years, the Israelites hit a breaking point, and they cry out to the Lord for help. And God immediately responds. He raises up a deliverer, Othniel, the son of Kenaz. Now you might recognize that family name because Othniel is Caleb's younger brother. But honestly, even more important than his strong family pedigree, the text specifically notes that the Spirit of the Lord came upon him. Empowered directly by God, Othniel goes to war, totally overpowers this oppressor, and secures a massive victory. And the result of this victory is just staggering. Because of Othniel's obedience and God's deliverance, the land actually enjoyed peace for 40 years. I mean, compare that to the 8 years of hardship. We're talking about a massive generational era of peace and stability that lasted all the way until Othniel died. Let's jump into part 3, Ehud and Eglon.
Okay, so once again, the Israelites fall right back into doing evil in the eyes of the Lord. And consequently, God gives Eglon, the king of Moab, power over Israel. King Eglon goes ahead and forms a military coalition with the Ammonites and the Amalekites. They attack Israel, and they actually take possession of the city of palms, which, just to clarify, is the simple everyday meaning for Jericho, but this time around the penalty is a lot steeper. The Israelites are forced into severe subjection under King Eglon for 18 grueling years.
So 18 years go by, and the Israelites cry out to the Lord once again, and God raises up a brand new deliverer, Ehud from the tribe of Benjamin. Now, the text highlights a highly crucial physical trait here. Ehud was left-handed. That's super important, as we'll see in a second. So, the Israelites sent Ehud to present a mandatory tribute, which was essentially a really heavy tax payment, to King Eglon of Moab. And interestingly, the text gives us another highly specific detail. It notes that King Eglon was a very fat man.
Which brings us to part 4, Ehud's escape and victory.
This is where it gets like a spy thriller. Ehud custom makes this double-edged sword that's about a cubit long, so roughly 18 inches. And because he's left-handed, he hides it on his right thigh underneath his clothes. This completely bypasses their standard security checks, because guards naturally check the left side for right-handed warriors. So after presenting the tribute, Ehud manages to secure a private audience with the king by claiming he has a secret message. Once they're alone, he draws that hidden sword with his left hand, and he strikes Eglon with such incredible force that the actual handle sinks into the king's belly right along with the blade. Then, Ehud quickly locks the upper room doors and makes his daring escape.
Meanwhile, King Eglon's servants eventually come back, they find the doors locked, and they mistakenly assume the king is, just using the restroom. So they wait, and their embarrassing delay gives Ehud the exact window of time he needs to escape right past the stone idols to safety. Once he reaches the hill country of Ephraim, he blows a trumpet rallying the Israelite troops. He leads the army down and immediately seizes the strategic fords, those shallow river crossings of the Jordan River. This brilliant move completely cuts off any chance of a Moabite retreat.
And this tactical maneuver results in an absolute, total victory. Right there at those river crossings, the Israelites strike down 10,000 Moabite soldiers. And these weren't just any soldiers. These were vigorous and strong men, literally the elite warriors of Moab. Not a single man escaped. Moab was completely subdued that day. And the result? A massive 80 years of peace for the land. Let that sink in. 80 years. That is 2 entire generations living completely free, all because of the courage and quick thinking of one left-handed man.
All right, part 5, Shamgar's unlikely weapon.
So, the enemies of Israel at this point, the Philistines, were really renowned for their conventional military superiority. They had iron swords, they had spears, the whole shebang. But our third judge, Shamgar, he goes into battle with an ox goad. Now, if you're wondering what an ox goad is, it's simply a long wooden stick used by farmers to prod their animals while plowing dirt. It is literally a piece of everyday agricultural equipment. It is completely unsuited for organized warfare.
And yet, the text states plainly that Shamgar struck down 600 Philistines with this ox goad, and he too saved Israel. It's just an absolutely incredible feat, isn't it? 600 armed men defeated by one farmer wielding a wooden farming stick. The takeaway here is incredibly clear. Real deliverance doesn't strictly require conventional military might or immense wealth, or even the best technology.
Which leads us perfectly into part 6, lessons from chapter 3.
Looking at the big picture here, we definitely see a historical cycle of falling and rising. It really shows how vulnerable a nation becomes when it compromises its core values. But at the same time, we see God's constant overarching mercy. Think about it. When the oppression got totally unbearable and the people offered sincere cries for help, God responded every single time. 8 years of pain was replaced by 40 years of peace. 18 years of subjugation was wiped out by 80 years of peace. It just goes to show that a return to obedience brings a vastly disproportionate amount of peace and blessing.
And on a personal level, this chapter teaches us something really profound. God uses our unique, seemingly strange traits. Ehud's left-handedness, that wasn't a flaw. It was the precise tactical advantage he needed to win freedom for his people. Furthermore, great things can absolutely be achieved with whatever simple tools we already have at our disposal. Just like Shamgar's ox goad, your everyday tools can yield extraordinary results. Deliverance very often arrives in completely unexpected forms.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. How can you use your own unique traits and the everyday tools you already have to overcome the challenges that you're facing today? Seriously, don't discount what's already in your hand or the quirks that make you different. They might just be the exact instruments you need for your greatest victory.
Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.